The President's New Clothes, by Alex and Taylor, to American citizens paid by George Soros and the fake news media. This is the story of America's downfall, when Donald Trump ran for president because his penis was so small, but Donald had an ego, and so it began his run for the highest office with the smallest penis in the land. Donald was a celebrity, and oh was he rich, but the size of his heart and his pecker were less than an inch. This made him so angry. Donnie was mad, so a custom suit tailor offered something he lacked. A new set of clothes to give the confidence he needed. The price was steep, but he begged and pleaded. "The suit is perfect," Donald exclaimed, spending hours in the mirror astonished and amazed. But there was a problem. Even Melania could see the new clothes left him naked. There stood Trump and his barely visible, tiny freckled pee-pee. "Mexicans are criminals and rapists," Donald cried out his woes as he made his announcement for presidency, but ass naked in his new clothes. And no matter what he said, tweeted, shouted, or lied, came the complete silence of spineless Republicans standing by his side. "Grab women by the pussies," he declared with a grin, and mocked national war heroes like John McCain, and Republicans never said a word because they only cared to win. That's just Trump. He didn't mean what he said, yet Ted Cruz, Paul Ryan, and Lindsey Graham would defend him if Donald took a Trump-sized shit on each one of their heads. He said he could do anything. He could shoot someone in the streets, and he was probably right. Can't anyone remember what this racist, misogynistic asshole tweets? With tiny hands and an even smaller dick, no Republican spoke out about Donald when it came time to nominating this fucking prick. Billy, Commander-in-Chief, the same guy who had been rumored to have Russian hookers piss all over the sheets, the same reality show jerk-off you used to watch on TV while you fantasize about his daughter on the commercial breaks on NBC. But he's a businessman. He's a real big success. I don't care he went backstage at pageants just to watch girls undress. Worth the fact that most of his businesses are fraud, or that he declared bankruptcy 4 times so that anyone who worked for him didn't get paid off, or how he bribes journalists to get people to shut their lips, or how he partied with Jeffrey Epstein, that dead guy who used to rape kids. And so began Donald's conquest to win at all costs, declaring he would call the election rigged if the votes said he lost. He mocked the disabled building a campaign on heat, and the GOP took pleasure as he called Hillary a nasty woman during a national debate. And to much of our surprise, he actually won even after losing the popular vote by the millions, nearly 3.1. And in his second day in office, what did he do? Complained about his inaugural crowd size. A side-by-side comparison to Obama's ceremony clearly painted the truth. But why complain about something we could actually see? Unlike poor Donald and his microscopic cold-shivering ween, he cried out fake news, Kelly, and complained alternative facts. But for 4 years the lights kept coming to try to keep track. His hate for others started with a simple plan: let's keep out the Muslims. His inner circle, led by sociopath Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon, began to chant. And that's what they did, and soon came the ban to discriminate against those of color, no longer welcome in our land, and those people from shithole countries they can't come to, because if you're different than us, we want nothing to do with you. Next came executive orders to start building his wall, to keep out the Mexicans and to hide the fact that Donald's scrotum was ever so small. But poor little Donnie never got his way. He shut down the entire government to try to get his wall paid. An immigrant caravan allowed Republicans to rage before detaining and separating families at the border and putting their kids in a cage. And Fox News was always there to spin a narrative fast. because Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson love the stench of nutmeg and Ivanka's perfume with their heads so far up Donald's ass. Repeal everything Obama has done, even if it hurts millions and they lose their health insurance. Tell them all, good luck. And the EPA, who cares? If the air we breathe is cleaner, we will leave the Paris Climate Agreement, so no one thinks I have a tiny wiener. And DACA, do you think that I care? I'll deport each one of them. I'm the dreamer's worst nightmare. Oh, and the Iran deal, yeah, fuck that too. I would rather choose war over peace. Let them build a nuke. But suddenly it was news that James Comey and the FBI were investigating a connection, that Donald and his campaign had colluded with Russia, a country for which Donald had a tiny erection. I'm going to drain the swamp, Donald probably used to say, but what he meant was I'm going to fire anyone who stands in my way. Was firing Comey obstruction of justice? It sure indeed sounded corrupt, but when your penis is as small as Donald, you sure indeed don't give a fuck. It's a total witch hunt, bitch. Donald constantly on Twitter, usually around 6 in the morning during his morning dump from the White House shitter. FBI Director Robert Mueller stepped in to investigate Donald's misuse of power. The Comey firing, the DNC email hack, the communication with WikiLeaks, and the infamous meeting with the Russians before the election at Trump Tower. When Mueller gathered all the facts, he wrote in his report, the president has indeed committed obstruction of justice, but just like Donald's penis, Mueller's words came up ever so short. See, he's innocent, the GOP exclaimed in no time, ignoring that the DOJ refused to charge the president with his committed crimes. But if it was the witch hunt the GOP contested, why did a majority of Trump's associates get arrested? Michael Flynn, Michael Cohen, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, and Steve Bannon, and more. When there's one bad apple in the bunch, it usually means the rest are also rotten to the core. But the corruption doesn't stop there. Donald's next act leaked quick when he blocked dedicated funds to Ukraine unless the government announced an investigation into the 2020 Democrats' pick. When Donald was impeached, the Republican Senate wouldn't listen. There was only meth, and so the Republican mafia turned the cheek to a clearly naked guilty president and voted to acquit. You see, when it comes to Donald, it's never his fault, like the Supreme Court nomination of that frat boy goofer named Brett, who is similar to Donald, also had multiple accusations of sexual assault. But are we really surprised that Donald was going to push his nomination this far? Donald is the same guy that cheated on his wife after she gave birth to a son with a blonde porn star. He paid her off to stay quiet, but the news came crashing with a boom, and even Stormy Daniels said Donald's pathetic schmeckle was shaped like a small, shriveled, old soggy mushroom. And boy did Donald love dictators and all of their power. It was all he could think about every day while trying to find his retreating penis in the shower. He exclaimed, "President for life, that should be me." He continued to praise them all: Kim Jong-un, Duarte, Saudi princes that murdered American journalists, and communist Chinese President Xi. Why wasn't this at all concerning for Republicans to see? And we still don't know what Donald and Vladimir Putin talked about in that secret backroom meeting in Helsinki. Donald turned his back against friends, allies, intelligence. It was pure hysteria. Ignored reports of Russian soldiers putting bounties on U.S. soldiers' heads, and even to Putin's demands over our own national advisors remove troops from Syria. And remember the time neo-Nazis marched in Charlottesville and the young girl protesting their hate was purposely hit by a car and killed, while his base of alt-right supporters cheered and were overjoyously thrilled, because they only care to own the liberals and create a further divide. As the naked president proclaimed, they were very fine people on both sides. Never once did Donald condemn white supremacy as the nation watched replays of that terrible wreck, and he was more eager to condemn NFL athletes for kneeling during the national anthem, but not when cops killed a black man by kneeling on his neck. Protest after protest, our cities began to burn. While Don was hiding in the White House bunker deciding when to make DC his turn, And soon on the streets suddenly came a flash and a blast, as peaceful protesters were beaten, detained, shot with rubber bullets, and unlawfully gassed. All this so that Donald could walk to a church and impress the world with the Bible, only to be seen that his actions and the size of his Peter were clearly that of a child. And none of the GOP's religious base seemed to think Donald's past or present actions through. If Donald was God's president, is this really what Jesus would do? And never forget that he called coronavirus a Democratic hoax and fake news lie while he sat on the sidelines watching as hundreds of thousands of Americans began to die. He suggested drinking disinfectant and injecting bleach way before Donald would even think to wear a mask. Said COVID-19 would be gone by summer, and then he sat on his lazy fat orange ass. Open up the economy, it is the only thing that needs to survive, so we can keep getting more rich. Now kiss your grandparents goodbye. How can we honestly allow this man to continue to tell dangerous lies for a second-term blunder when real people are dying and families are having to put their loved ones 6 feet under? And now we need to decide as a nation, will we choose love or hate? And do we the people have the power to lead this country to a brighter tomorrow and more promising future, where we can stand together proud and tall and reject a naked president with a penis, mind, heart and soul ever so small? Make it a priority to vote November 3rd. It's your civic duty to do when it comes the time to kick out the orange for the red, white and blue. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat or somewhere in between. On Tuesday, November 3rd, we all need to stand united as one and vote for the same team. And look, nobody's perfect and neither is Joe, but he's our guy this time, and there's a thing or two he knows. Joe has 8 years of Oval Office experience. He stands up for what is right. He's fighting for all Americans, not just the ones on his side. And if Joe gets a little sleepy and needs to take a nap, Kamala Harris will be there as his VP to always have his back. And if Joe ever needs the guidance, we know who he can call. The President of the United States, with the biggest dick of them all.